Everyone heard the slap, sharp, echoing, impossible to mistake. But no one expected who would step out of the shadows just seconds later. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Private Elena Ward had been in the Army for just 6 months. Quiet, focused, the kind of recruit who listened more than she spoke. On that blistering afternoon, the sun beat down on the training field like a punishment. The squad was halfway through a formation drill when Sergeant Blake lost his temper. He'd been on edge all week, snapping at everyone, but this time his fury had found a target. "Ward, you move like a sloth on parade," he barked, pacing in front of her. She stood still, sweat rolling down her temples, her fingers trembling slightly on her rifle. She opened her mouth to respond, just to explain, but before the words came, his hand cracked across her face. The air froze, boots stopped mid-step. Even the birds seemed to go silent. Blake's chest heaved. "Maybe now you'll learn to follow orders." Elena didn't cry, she didn't speak, she just straightened her shoulders, eyes fixed on the horizon, jaw clenched. Around her, the other recruits stared in stunned silence, fear and anger flickering in their eyes. Then came the voice, calm, but like steel scraping glass. "Sergeant Blake, step away from her." Everyone turned. 2 colonels were walking across the field. Colonel Myers, the base commander, and beside him, Colonel Dawson from the Ethics Division. Both had seen the strike from the observation platform. Blake froze, his lips parted, searching for words, but the weight of their gaze pinned him in place. "Explain yourself," Myers demanded, his voice low but thunderous. Blake stammered something about discipline, about training standards, but the words dissolved in the heavy air. Elena's cheek was still red, the mark of his palm stark against her skin, the only evidence anyone needed. "Discipline," Myers repeated, stepping closer. "That's not discipline, that's disgrace." A murmur ran through the recruits, a current of breath and disbelief. For the first time, they saw something sacred, the system defending the powerless. Myers turned to Elena. "Private Ward, you're dismissed for the day. Medical check, then report back to my office." She saluted, hand trembling slightly. "Yes, sir." As she walked away, she heard the colonel's next words. Words she would remember for the rest of her life. "Sergeant Blake, remove your rank insignia." Now, the silence cracked open like thunder. He hesitated, but one glare from Dawson ended that. His hands shook as he tore the Velcro from his uniform, the sound like ripping fabric in a church. The colonels didn't shout, they didn't threaten, they simply turned and walked off, leaving Blake standing alone in the dirt, stripped of the authority he'd abused. Later that evening, Elena sat in the medical bay, staring at her reflection in the small mirror above the sink. The bruise had already started to bloom, purple against pale skin, but behind it she saw something else. Strength. She thought of her mother's words before she'd enlisted. "Courage isn't loud, sweetheart. Sometimes it's just standing tall when you've been knocked down." Outside, the recruits gathered quietly, talking in hushed voices. No one mocked her, no one avoided her. If anything, their respect grew, not because she'd fought back, but because she hadn't lowered herself to hate. The next morning, Colonel Myers found her polishing her boots in the yard. "You handled yourself with dignity yesterday," he said softly. "And for what it's worth, Private, that's what leadership looks like." She didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. Weeks later, news spread that Sergeant Blake's career was over. The report filed by the colonels left no room for excuses. He'd been reassigned, pending investigation, a quiet exile from the ranks he once ruled through fear. And as for Elena, she kept training, kept marching, not to prove herself to anyone, but because now she understood something deeper about the uniform she wore. Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just walks onto the field at the exact moment it's needed most. Because respect isn't demanded, it's earned, and when courage meets cruelty, it never walks away empty-handed. And somewhere on that same parade ground, the dust still carries the memory of a young soldier who refused to bow her head. If this story moved you, Don't forget to subscribe to Relieved Stories and tell me in the comments what courage means to you, because every story you share helps kindness find its way back.